Okay, so you want to own a logistics company, trucks moving across the country, warehouses full of products, and thousands of deliveries every day. It sounds like the perfect business because almost everything people buy has to move somehow. But here's the problem. Moving more packages doesn't necessarily mean making more money. The first thing you need to understand is that a logistics company isn't really selling trucks or warehouses. It's selling movement, the promise that the right product will arrive at the right place at the right time and in the right condition. The truck is just the tool. Reliability is the real product. And that creates your first major decision. What kind of logistics company are you actually trying to own? Delivering packages across one city is completely different from hauling freight across a country or moving shipping containers across the world. The farther and more complex the journey becomes, the more infrastructure you need. So let's start with the simplest version. You buy a truck, find a customer, and start moving freight. On paper, the barrier to entry can look surprisingly low, but the first vehicle is only the beginning of the bill. Insurance, permits, equipment, technology, and enough cash to survive until customers actually pay can quickly multiply your startup cost. And once the truck starts moving, the economics change again, because now the company spends money every single mile. Fuel, labor, maintenance, insurance, and financing all follow the truck down the road. Revenue may rise with every delivery, but if your cost per mile rises faster, more work can actually leave you with less profit. So if every mile costs money, where does the profit actually come from? At the simplest level, you charge a customer more to move their goods than it costs you to complete the shipment. The difference is your margin. But in logistics, that gap can be surprisingly small, which means a tiny change in fuel, labor, or pricing can erase the profit completely. And here's the next problem. You don't always control what customers are willing to pay. When there is more freight than available trucks, prices can rise. But when too many carriers are chasing too little cargo, prices can collapse. In other words, the market can change your margin before the truck even starts moving. That's why many logistics companies don't want to depend entirely on the open market. Instead, they fight for long-term contracts, agreements where customers promise regular shipments in exchange for predictable pricing and reliable capacity. Contracts can make revenue more stable, but they also create a new risk. Once you promise the capacity, you still have to deliver. And this is where scale becomes dangerous. One truck breaking down is one problem. 100 trucks create 100 opportunities for something to go wrong. But scale can also lower costs. Larger fleets can negotiate cheaper fuel, spread technology and management expenses across more deliveries, and keep more of their network working efficiently. And that leads to one of the strangest problems in logistics. An empty truck can still be moving, burning fuel, paying a driver, and adding mileage without earning any revenue at all. These are called empty miles, and finding another load for the return journey can be the difference between a profitable route and a money-losing one. And once you operate more than a few vehicles, this becomes a giant optimization problem. Which truck takes which load? Which route wastes the least fuel? And how do you avoid sending an empty vehicle hundreds of miles in the wrong direction? This is where technology becomes part of the business. But even the perfect route can fall apart when a truck is forced to wait. Every hour sitting at a loading dock is an hour the driver is being paid, the vehicle is unavailable, and the next delivery gets closer to being late. In logistics, time isn't just money. Time is capacity, and once it's lost, you can't store it for later. And this is why many logistics companies expand beyond transportation. If you can store the customer's inventory, pick the order, pack it, and then deliver it, you're no longer earning money from just one trip. You're earning money from multiple steps in the supply chain, but now you're also responsible for an entirely new operation. And a warehouse has its own version of an empty truck, but space that isn't being used efficiently still costs money. Every square foot has rent, electricity, labor, and equipment attached to it, whether the products inside move quickly or sit there for months. The goal isn't simply to fill the warehouse, it's to make the space productive. And once you're handling thousands of orders, accuracy becomes its own economic problem. One wrong item doesn't create just one mistake. It can trigger a refund, a return shipment, extra labor, and a replacement delivery. And the most expensive part may be invisible. A customer who decides never to order from you again, and mistakes aren't the only risk. The goods you're moving may be worth far more than the truck carrying them. If cargo is damaged, stolen, lost, or spoiled, the financial consequences can be enormous. That's why insurance isn't just another bill, it's one of the invisible foundations keeping the entire logistics business alive. And this reveals another challenge. Many logistics costs don't wait for revenue. Truck payments, insurance, software, warehouse rent, and administrative salaries can arrive every month, whether business is booming or completely quiet. These fixed costs create pressure to keep assets working, because a parked truck may stop earning, but many of its bills don't stop. And when demand finally arrives, growth creates another problem. Logistics is capital intensive. A new customer may bring millions in potential revenue, but serving them can require trucks, trailers, warehouse equipment, and technology before much of that revenue ever reaches your bank account. In this business, sometimes you have to spend first, just to earn later. And buying the assets is only part of the cash problem. A logistics company may complete a delivery today, but wait weeks to receive payment. During that gap, fuel suppliers, drivers, and repair shops may still need to be paid. So a company can look profitable on paper and still run into trouble because the cash arrives too late. And cash flow becomes even more dangerous when too much of the business depends on one customer. A giant contract can transform a logistics company, but if that customer leaves, the trucks, warehouse space, and employees built around them don't disappear with the revenue. One customer can help you grow. Depending on one customer can make you fragile. And finding replacement customers isn't always easy because basic transportation can become brutally competitive. If several companies can move the same load between the same two cities, customers can compare prices. And the service starts to look like a commodity. Then everyone competes on price, while fuel, wages, insurance, and maintenance refuse to get cheaper. And this is why the strongest logistics companies try to become harder to replace. Specialized equipment, temperature-controlled transport, complex fulfillment, technology integration, or exceptional reliability can give customers reasons to choose something other than the lowest price. The harder your service is to copy, the less you have to compete like a commodity. But the more connected the network becomes, the more one disruption can spread. A storm, port delay, road closure, labor shortage, or system failure in one place can affect deliveries hundreds of miles away. In logistics, resilience isn't about preventing every problem. It's about stopping one problem from becoming everyone else's problem. But resilience has a price. Backup trucks, extra warehouse capacity, alternative suppliers, spare equipment, and redundant systems can keep the business moving when something fails. But during normal times, some of that capacity may sit unused. The challenge is deciding how much inefficiency you're willing to pay for. So one disruption doesn't stop everything. But even the best designed network is useless without people to operate it. Trucks need drivers. Warehouses need workers. Dispatch systems need experienced operators. And when skilled labor becomes difficult to recruit or retain, expensive physical assets can sit idle, turning a people problem into a financial problem. And because logistics creates millions of small decisions, technology can become a major economic advantage. Better routing can reduce wasted miles. Better warehouse systems can reduce errors. Better data can improve forecasting and asset utilization. Technology doesn't eliminate the physical work, but it can help every truck, worker, and warehouse do more. And technology leads to one of the biggest strategic choices in logistics. Do you own the trucks or coordinate someone else's? Asset-heavy companies invest in fleets and warehouses for greater control. Asset-light companies use partners and outside capacity to grow with less capital. Neither model is automatically better. They simply make money and take risk in very different ways. And this gap between shippers who need capacity and carriers who have it explains why freight brokers exist. The broker doesn't need to own the truck. Its job is to find available capacity, negotiate the match, coordinate the shipment, and earn a margin for solving the connection problem. And once a logistics network becomes large enough, scale can start creating advantages of its own. More customers create more freight. More freight can attract more capacity, and more routes create more opportunities to match trucks efficiently. Scale doesn't guarantee success, but a dense, well-run network can become more useful as it grows. And at global scale, logistics becomes a machine made of many different businesses. A single product may move by truck, ship, rail, warehouse, and delivery van before reaching the customer. No company has to own every step, but someone has to coordinate the handoffs because every transfer creates another place where time, money, or information can be lost. And this is where the economics become surprising. The biggest revenue number isn't always the best business. A company can move enormous amounts of freight and still earn very little on each shipment. The real question is what remains after the trucks, labor, facilities, partners, and overhead are paid. And when margins are already thin, it doesn't take one dramatic disaster to destroy the business. A few bad contracts, too much debt, poor utilization, late customer payments, rising costs, or uncontrolled growth can slowly remove the financial buffer. In logistics, failure often begins long before the trucks stop moving. The strongest logistics companies aren't necessarily the ones with the most trucks or the biggest warehouses. They're the ones that price risk correctly, keep assets productive, control costs, protect cash flow, and deliver reliably. The real advantage isn't owning the most, it is operating the entire system better than the competition. So, can owning a logistics company actually make you rich? Yes, but not simply because the world needs transportation. The winners create a real advantage, protect their margins, survive downturns, and grow without letting complexity outrun control. The opportunity is enormous. So is the execution risk. So, should you own a logistics company? Only if you understand what you're really buying. You're not buying trucks, warehouses, or software. You're taking responsibility for thousands of moving parts, thin margins, constant uncertainty, and the opportunity to make the entire system work better than everyone else. In the end, a logistics company doesn't really sell trucks, warehouses, or miles. It sells certainty in an uncertain world. The promise that something will be where it needs to be when it needs to be there. The trucks are visible, the warehouses are visible, but the real product is everything required to make that promise come true.